Welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Delighted to be joined by Paul Kelly. We are here to talk about our KOs of the year in 2023. We've done lots of other videos regarding what's going to happen what happened in 2023, what's going to happen in 2024. Please do go on our channel and check them all out. We'd really appreciate it. Probably looking forward to this one the most, Paul. I think we had some good KOs in the UK. Outside of the UK, we've got 2 picks each as always. But yeah, looking forward to hearing what you've got for us here.
Yeah, no, this is one of my favorites. I'm glad I've been selected for this video. Honestly, there've been so many good knockouts worldwide and here in the UK that I'm looking forward to getting my teeth stuck into this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's what we watch boxing to be entertained. We love the sport, and I'm not saying all fights have to end with a KO, but it adds something to the viewing experience when it does. And I'm not saying I enjoy people being knocked out. It doesn't have to be a kind of a Carl Froch, George Groves 2 knockout every time. Every time you'd be a bit greedy if you wanted that all the time. But yeah, we do love to see that emphatic finish. And of course, a KO victory means no kind of dodgy judges or kind of controversial points decisions. It's an emphatic way to end a sporting event. Really, is one way of putting it. Going to do one from the UK each and one outside of the UK each. What is your UK KO of the year this year, Paul?
Yeah, so I actually find this quite difficult to pick. I had a shortlisted 3, and I could have picked any of them really. But I have gone for a lot of people's knockout of the year, and that is Leigh Wood's knockout of Michael Conlan on March the 12th. In 2022 in Nottingham. The fact that the reason I've gone for this one over my other ones, which I'll quickly mention in a bit, is just kind of the sheer magnitude of it in the sense of how the fight had gone in the lead up to the punch. So obviously, 12th round, you're in the last round. It looks like Michael Conlan's about to win the WBA regular belt at the time, obviously off Leigh Wood. He knocked Leigh Wood down in the first round, I think it was. Had outboxed him for large portions of the fight. Had been knocked down in the 11th round, but it was a kind of a controversial knockdown. But there was no question that Conlan was ahead on the scorecards. Wood was getting into the fight with Conlan tiring, but nobody expected that to happen. Just the way Leigh Wood just was like, you know what, stuff this, bite down on the gum shield, not come forward, and literally knock Conlan out of the ring. I think you don't really get any more emphatic than that. It was obviously a scare at the time because you see someone actually get knocked out of the ring. You don't want to see that ever. But obviously, luckily, Conlan was all good, and he's gone on to have some good wins after the fight. But yeah, in sheer magnitude of how the fight had played out, the fact that Wood was behind and he needed that Hollywood punch almost to end the fight, and the fact that in the lead up to, do you remember in one of the press conferences he had said, if it's the 12th round and you're still standing there, I'll still knock you out. And it came true. He said it, and then he followed it up. So yeah, I've gone with Leigh Wood as my 2022 knockout of the year. Special mention to Joe Cordina for his against Agawa back in June, and I'm even going to mention Chris Billen-Smith this previous weekend. That has to be up there as well. But yeah, no, I've gone for Leigh Wood's knockout of Michael Conlan in Nottingham in March.
Yeah, I think the Billen-Smith one, obviously it's fresh in the memory, but actually that's a genuine contender for knockout of the year. It really is. I think it was back in March, Leigh Wood, Michael Conlan. A fantastic fight, a fantastic finish to the fight. One of those when, again, kind of stocks were raised for both fighters. I just think one thing I would say is that I thought going into that fight, Michael Conlan and Jamie Conlan as well were just a little bit too confident. I watched both press conferences and they were just kind of, some of the things they were saying, I was thinking to myself, some of the things you're saying, you better win now, because if you don't win, you are going to look a bit silly. However, good performance by Michael Conlan. I just think just couldn't hang on at the end there. Leigh Wood was kind of more experienced fighter, and I think that kind of showed because he still had that engine in the last 2-3 rounds, really. But yeah, to kind of, in some ways, as you said, we don't want to see someone get knocked out the ring, but in other ways, for it to be finished that way in the 12th round, when Leigh Wood was kind of was down on the card as well, was fantastic. Do want to ask you, Paul, what are your thoughts on a rematch? It feels like I'm not convinced it's going to happen personally, because I feel like Leigh Wood has so many other options. Whereas if you're Michael Conlan, that's the one guy that's beaten you. What would your thoughts be on a rematch if we see that?
It's a tricky one. I think it seems that Conlan really still does want that rematch, and it's obvious why. Um, I don't think it'll happen either anytime soon. The only way I see it happening is if Conlan, say, fights, Lopez, who's just beaten Warrington and wins that world title, and Wood beats Lara, for example, and they have a unification. Because then there's more at stake. There's more belts, I suppose. How do I see it going? I'd probably go towards a Conlan points victory. I had said that the first time around. And then, yeah, but something was just, I don't know. There's just something telling me that if he would be able to hang on this time, the second time around, I don't know why. I just think Conlan would maybe look at the first fight and say, oh, like he would kick himself at how the last round went. Literally another minute and a half, and he would have won the fight. So I think he could probably do that. But anytime I go against Leigh Wood, or anytime anyone goes against Leigh Wood, he just wins and pulls one out of the bag. So don't be surprised if Wood did stop him again.
No, exactly. Well, looking forward to Leigh Wood. Looks like he's facing Monsieur Lara in February, so really looking forward to that one. My turn now. My KO of the year in the UK is Tyson Fury against Dillian Whyte. Not a good fight. Like, I didn't enjoy the fight. I thought it was 5-6 rounds. Yeah, 6 rounds of Fury just doing enough to win the rounds, but not really hurting Whyte, and Whyte getting frustrated. And yeah, it was kind of probably one of the most disappointing fights of the year if you consider Wembley Stadium pay-per-view. Tyson Fury kind of returning to the UK after a few years. However, that uppercut to end the fight, I thought was outstanding. It kind of came out of nowhere. I imagine there were a lot of people in that stadium who weren't really watching the fight when it was going on, because it was getting a bit boring. And I'm not kind of in a position to give like a technical breakdown, but to see it in slow motion, to hear Tim Bradley's commentary when you're watching it back was just it was just outstanding. And obviously, to be fair to Whyte, he did get back up, but was in no position to continue. So that is my KO of the year that happened in the UK.
Yeah, you know what? Elliot Grigg is absolutely loving the fact that you've mentioned that. But no, honestly, even the fact that that uppercut knocked a tooth or two of Dillian Whyte's out, and he just went tumbling back to the canvas. Things like, it was incredible. Again, I understand what you're saying about the fight wasn't great, but you have to take into consideration, Wembley Stadium, massive stage, world title fight, Tyson Fury's, first fight in the UK in however long, and then he delivered a knockout, a highlight reel knockout. Yeah, I can see why you've picked that as your knockout of 2022 in UK shores.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like one final thing from me, I think if you got to remember, Fury used to be recognised as a non-puncher. If you look at kind of early on in his career, and to go from that to the kind of the KOs he delivered when he kind of stopped Wilder twice, and then the Dillian Whyte fight as well, just an outstanding punch. Moving on swiftly, Paul, what is your KO of the year that didn't happen in the UK? What's your international KO?
Yeah, so this one again, there's a couple that came to mind, but I've managed to select one, and I've gone with the monster Naoya Inoue knockout of Nonito Donaire in their rematch in June the 7th. I believe it was the second round. And just if you look at that, he had a knockdown in the first and earlier in that round, I believe. And the actual finish itself, It was a 1-2. It looked like Donaire blocked well, at least one of those shots. Then there was another 1-2. And straight after that 1-2, Donaire probably thought he had another second, dropped his guard, and this absolutely huge left hook from Inoue, just it almost doesn't catch you right on the jaw, kind of flicks past your mouth and your nose, and just turns your lights out. Donaire, when the leg folds and everything, and he fell to the ground. And to be fair to Donaire, he tried his best to get up, but he didn't know what day of the week it was.
Yeah.
But the fact that that was a massive unification fight. Donaire captured another one of his belts before eventually, obviously, becoming undisputed champion the other week there. I think, the fact that Naoya Inoue, he has so many knockouts on his record, I think he could come up for knockout of the year almost every year.
Yeah.
So, that's why Inouye's knockout of Donaire is my 2022 international knockout of the year, but special mention as well. One that I think's gone under the radar potentially as well was Gervonta Davis's of knockout of Rolando Romero back in May. I thought that was fantastic as well. But Inouye's knockout of Donaire, that is my international knockout of 2022.
Fantastic. Yeah. I think after considering Donaire as one of the few people to take Inoue to a points decision in the first fight, it was nice to see Inoue not let that happen again. And it was a destructive, scary performance. To be honest, I don't know if Donaire, he's not fought since then. I don't know if he's retiring or is continuing to fight, but that's the sort of stoppage where fighters they're not the same again. And in some ways it wasn't nice to see because Donaire is such a popular fighter. He's been around for a long time. But I can't, it's a fantastic fighter. I would love to see, I'd love to see Inoue kind of come over to the UK in the next couple of years, if possible. I don't know who he's going to fight, but he's has the potential to be kind of, an international household name, in my opinion, in the next couple of years. He's got that kind of star quality with how he fights and the knockouts that he delivers. We'll see what he does in 2024. So fantastic choice there, Paul. One from me again. I've gone for the heavyweights again. Some people might not like this, but again, we're talking about knockouts of the year here. We're not talking about fights of the year here. Deontay Wilder's return against Robert Helenius earlier this year. 1 round job for Deontay Wilder. It was part of the reason why I'm picking this fight is because if you consider Wilder's gone from being 41-0, 42-0 to getting, obviously had that draw against Tyson Fury and then kind of had 2 knockout defeats to Fury. Some people thought he was going to retire, to come back against Helenius, who's not a bad fighter, and to stop him in the kind of destructive way he did, I just found very impressive. Again, not going to do a technical breakdown, but to knock someone out in that kind of short range, I thought was very impressive. It wasn't a typical Wilder stoppage. But I just really, I'm a Wilder fan, so I just really enjoyed it, and it made me want to see more of Wilder in 2024. And I'm so glad he's not retired because he's such an entertaining fighter.
Yeah, for sure, he is box office no matter what. And yes, he's got those defeats on his record to Fury now, but there's no doubt that he's still definitely top 5, top 3, arguably heavyweight in the world. And with that knockout power, he's really capable of knocking anyone out. And again, almost in a similar sense to me mentioning Inoue, don't be surprised for Wilder until the end of his career, whether that be 2027 or whatever it is. Don't be surprised if a Wilder knockout comes up every single year in contention for knockout of the year, because he's just a frightening puncher and seems to always deliver that big shot.
Yeah, 100%. And he's still in a good position. There's one guy on his record who he's not been able to beat. I know there's whispers of Wilder Joshua happening in 2023. Not going to go into that now because I feel like I don't want to get fooled into thinking that's generally going to happen until it gets announced personally. But there are still massive fights for Wilder, and I personally think he could beat Joshua. I think he could beat Usyk personally if he hits him correctly. And he could be in a really good position come this time next year.
Definitely.
Yeah, that will wrap things up for us, Paul. Feel like we've covered a lot this year. Plenty of good KOs in 2022, and hoping for more in 2023.
Yeah, for sure. That was great fun. I'm glad we did that.
Thanks, Paul.